Every training camp, there are a collection of guys, a handful of football players that end up tickling the fancy of fans throughout the kingdom. These players go on to be training camp darlings, and we hope against all hope that they will end up being contributors to the team during the season. And this is really one of the more magical parts about following a football team. Football in general is so different in this way. Right now, teams across the league are 90 guys. Eventually, they will become a team of 53 individuals. But there are still, right now, 9 sets of 10 players for whom we might envision a great season. And inevitably, in the sport of football, even in as rough and tumble a league as the NFL, players will emerge on every team throughout the season that end up being surprises. Now, I have a collection of these guys right here. 8 players from the Chiefs offense that I think have a good chance at being training camp darlings, and I even set forth a perimeter as far as what it means to be a training camp darling. You have to be low on the depth chart and high on the hype, but not high on the hype for too long. For example, this will be the 3rd preseason for Justin Ross, the wide receiver out of Clemson, and because of that, I don't think I would classify him as a training camp darling. The hype has been too much for Justin Ross, and the production too little. I think I still have very high hopes for Justin Ross. I think many in this fandom do, but I don't think he quite qualifies as a training camp darling. Now, the first player is a quarterback. I have at least one person listed at every position. There's only one tight end and one quarterback, but halfback, wide receiver, and offensive lineman, there are 2 names at each of these positions. Chris Oladokun, 6'2", 215 pounds, ran a 4.7 140. Now, here's the first thing to know about Chris Oladokun. He is not Shane Buechele. Shane Buechele was cut last preseason, and I could not for the life of me put my finger on why. Here is the only thing that I can kind of imagine was at play. There is a difference between being good and being effective. That is pronounced at the quarterback position, but it's also very difficult to see at the quarterback position. Shane Buechele was effective. He could move the football. He could score with this offense. He had some zip on his passes, etc. What we don't necessarily know and can't see with any type of accuracy outside of seeing the all-22 is whether or not Shane Buechele was doing what he was supposed to do. There is a difference between making a play and doing the right thing. Shane Buechele may have ended up completing a lot of 4-yard passes that turn into 8 and a first down, when what he was supposed to be doing was threading the needle on a pass 12 yards downfield, and instead of reading that progression, jumped straight to his 3rd option, which was a dump-off pass in essence. Now, I am not necessarily suggesting that this had been the case with Shane Buechele, but it's the only thing that I can figure from this side of things. Chris Oladokun has not been quite so successful in the preseason as was Shane Buechele. I was sure Shane Buechele was making the team last preseason. The second thing here is that Chris Oladokun adds a mobile dimension, but I don't think he's a scrambler. I don't think he's a runner. When you watch him in college, he was a guy who was able to buy time in order to throw the ball. This is very good for keeping the clock running. This is, in my opinion, where we might see Chris Oladokun if he ends up making the 53. We might see him in situations where, okay, the Chiefs are winning by 28 points in the fourth quarter. You take Patrick Mahomes out. Really, you don't want his insurance policy, Carson Wentz, in the game either, so you let Chris Oladokun on the field, hoping that he can burn some minutes away. Scrambling in that way to keep the play alive may be necessary in those situations. But here's the big thing with Oladokun. He is a huge underdog to make this roster because the Kansas City Chiefs are more than likely to roster Patrick Mahomes for the 2024 season. I think Carson Wentz is absolutely making this roster. I don't think anyone can do anything that Carson Wentz does not make this team. Can Chris Oladokun put himself in position to be a tradable asset this preseason? I don't mean a second rounder, the Andy special, trading your backup for a second round pick. I don't mean that at all. I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs acquired Chris Oladokun for free from the Steelers because they tried to sneak him through to their practice squad. The Chiefs snatched him off of waivers. Can they then flip that into a 7th round pick in the 2025 NFL draft? Something like that. Moving on to halfback, the number one name here is obvious, but if we are talking about training camp darlings and we are talking about the fact that there should be limits on this sort of thing, like Justin Ross, for example, been on here too long, this is the final season we should see Deneric Prince on this list. 6 foot tall, 219 pounds with a 4.41 40 and a 1.53 10-yard split. Both of those are very good numbers. Deneric Prince should be a Kansas City Chief in 2024. I 100% believe that. And when you watch him, he's a very smooth operator. He's a guy whose athleticism is pronounced without being... He's not a twitchy kind of guy, but he's a smooth kind of guy. And if you want someone hearkening back to the days of Kareem Hunt, he has extreme amounts of balance, a la Kareem Hunt, but he's also a very effective receiver out of the backfield. I didn't really get that from his college film, but all reports from last preseason were that he was absolutely smoking defensive backs out there on the practice field. The downside here, the Kansas City Chiefs re-signed Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm not sure what that means they believe about Deneric Prince. Now, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, believe it or not, we've given him a hard time on this channel. Probably you have given him a hard time on your own. He's a high floor situation. I wouldn't say he's a high floor player, but he's a high floor situation. Clyde Edwards-Helaire might not do a whole lot of great stuff, but he doesn't screw things up very often either. He is not a catastrophe on the field. There's a lot to be said for that in a running back that is not your primary running back. Is Deneric Prince able to convince this coaching staff this preseason? None of that matters. Is Deneric Prince able to convince this coaching staff this preseason all of the worries that they might have about him fumbling, forgetting the play, dropping a ball, whatever it is that they worry about? That doesn't need to be the case. Is he able to make that leap and get the confidence of the coaches in that way? If so, I think Deneric Prince might be the number 2 running back here in Kansas City. Now, the second name here on the running backs, don't look down here. It's not time yet. Carson Steele, 6'1", 225 pounds. There are questions about that 4'7", 740. That's the only number I can find, really. It seems that I found a 4'6", 2 number at one point, but I was quoted all sorts of numbers every time that I talk about Carson Steele that I have the wrong 40-yard dash. I'm willing to admit that I do if I do, but I would like to have a source for whether or not he runs something in the 4.5s and 4.6s. He also did 28 reps on the bench press with 225 pounds. This is a thumper type running back to run out the clock. This would be a massive thing for the Kansas City Chiefs. A little bit of Mike Allstott for a high-flying offense that we should have here in Kansas City. Unfortunately, I think that Carson Steele might still be a year out from being effective in the NFL. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. This might just be witchcraft that I am talking here. This might be something that I am making up. This is more or less not scouting, but yeah, I think it's going to have to wait a year. That's essentially what I'm doing here with Carson Steele after seeing Deneric Prince last preseason and all of the things that he was capable of and still had to sit out a season. I think Carson Steele might be a year out. Now, this third talking point for Carson Steele is neither here nor there, but I'm a big numbers guy. I'm a big workout warrior guy. As a freshman, he reportedly squatted 615 pounds and bench pressed 405 pounds. As a freshman in college, if that's true, he's probably benching over 500 now and probably squatting somewhere close to the eights. He is, by all reports, a gym rat. And guys who are at 18 years old squatting 615 pounds, when they work on it throughout an athletic career and end up 23, 24 in the NFL, they're not still squatting 615 pounds. They are far advanced beyond that. So those are just interesting numbers, and it would be great to have a thumper back for the Kansas City Chiefs just to throttle teams back every once in a while. I mean, if Carson Steele is an effective running back, you put him on the field with Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, Kadarius Toney in the slot, Mecole Hardman in the slot. That's a lot of speed that they're going to want to take the safeties out of the box. They're going to want to move the linebackers back to cover that sort of shell in the middle of the field. But if you do that, and a guy like Carson Steele, who's effective, if he's effective, is on the field, that's a 6-yard run. I mean, just boom, 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 6 yards. 6 yards, 6 yards, 6 yards. All of a sudden, we're at midfield, right? That's the sort of thing that is interesting, intriguing about a 6'1", 225-pound guy. At wide receiver, how could I not include Nikko Remigio? This is the last season. He will be on this list. 5'10", 187 pounds, a 4.56 40-yard dash. 19 reps on the bench press with 225 pounds while weighing 187 pounds. This is a grimy, gritty, grungy grinder of a player. Don't do that. The word grinder is not always, this is the internet age. He's a guy who's going to make the catch. He's a guy who is going to sell out to make the catch. Out of all the times we have seen Patrick Mahomes red in the face for screaming at Mecole Hardman as he was streaking down the field and I guess forgot that he was playing the sport of football, all the times that someone like Kadarius Toney has reached for the football but not sold out, Nikko Remigio is going to make the catch. He's going to sell out and have the ball in his hands. Now, there are going to be times where that comes to the detriment of running after the catch. There are going to be times where that needlessly comes at the detriment of running after the catch. You've seen those guys who will jump to make a body catch. If you left your feet, you should be leaving your feet because the ball is out of reach, not because you want to jump up and have it hit you in the gut, right? Those are guys, however, that make the catch first. So the real question here with Nikko Remigio is how high can he go? Can he top Justin Ross? Can he top Sky Moore? Can he top Kadarius Toney? If all things are equal and he outperforms Xavier Worthy, can he be slotted above Xavier Worthy? The next name on this list is Jaron Hayek, an undrafted rookie free agent, just like Carson Steele, just like two names later on this list. Jaron Hayek is 6 feet tall, 199 pounds, ran a 4.59 40, and did 20 reps on the bench press with 225 pounds. He is an interesting athlete in that Jaron Hayek seems to be pretty good at everything, phenomenal at nothing, and terrible at nothing. And if you can get that, now he's a little bit slow in the 40, but honestly, a lot of those guys who end up cranking up their 40s in the postseason are doing so with tips and tricks from a coach. I don't know that Jaron Hayek had that. Is he a 4.59 guy, or would he, with a little bit more coaching, have been a 4.55 guy, etc.? He looks faster than 4.6 on the field. He really does. And the main sticking point here, so what I mean by training camp darling is guys that we fall in love with as players in training camp, watching them play drill after drill, team segment after team segment. For Jaron Hayek, anywhere is up from here. Can he, if you look at his game, if you're fair to Jaron Hayek and you look at his game, I think you have to leave from that film asking yourself the question, can he be what Sky Moore was supposed to be? I don't know that we're going to get the answer to that in training camp. I don't know that we're going to have the answer to that this season. I do think Jaron Hayek has a pretty good chance of making the practice squad for the Kansas City Chiefs. At tight end, Baylor Cupp, another UDFA, 6'6", 260, somewhere between 243 and 260 pounds. It depends on where you find his weight. He ran reportedly a 4.55 40. I could find no confirmation on that. However, he's an athlete. He's an underrated athlete. If you have Travis Kelce and Wiley and Cupp on the field at the same time, that is a massive formation. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You've got two more spots. If you get those three guys on the field with Xavier Worthy and Isaiah Pacheco, the defense doesn't know what to do. Yeah, that's a great big set. Isaiah Pacheco runs a 4.37. Xavier Worthy runs a 4.21. What are you doing with your safeties? What are you doing with your safeties in that spot? I don't know that there's any good answer. Baylor Cupp is also good in traffic. He is good making the catch with a defender all over him. He is good making the catch with the defender's hands in his face. He is good at all of those things. So, yes, Jared Wiley is the obvious answer for, the next guy up at tight end. Noah Gray, I think, is falling out of fashion. Baylor Cupp might make Noah Gray expendable. He really, really might. I would say Noah Gray's route running is superior to Baylor Cupp at this point. I don't know how many reps you plan to use your third tight end this season. If you were looking at Baylor Cupp being your third tight end while you have Jared Wiley at number 2 and Travis Kelce at number 1, I think what you're doing there is you've got the time to keep Baylor Cupp on the active roster and run him out there 3, 4, 5 plays per game. Build him up from there because he's got the potential. I'm not saying he has Jared Wiley potential. I'm not saying he will ever be Travis Kelce. I think that he can be much more effective than Noah Gray. I really do. So this could be an interesting season from the young tight end out of Texas Tech. As far as the offensive line is concerned, I have 2 offensive linemen here. One, a UDFA, Ethan Driskell. One, a 7th rounder in CJ Hansen. Ethan Driskell, 6'8", 313 pounds. He needs to get bigger. He needs to get stronger. He might, in my opinion, be an offensive guard, not an offensive tackle. He was a left tackle by trade at Marshall. I think he might be a guard in the NFL. He's got 35 3/8 inch arms, which is good for a tackle, phenomenal for a guard. And he does at times get lazy during reps. That's something, however, that is coachable. You can coach that out of a guy, especially now that he's in the NFL and he's getting paid to do this. I think this is more than likely a practice squad season for Driskell, and I think you could sneak him through to the practice squad at the end of the offseason. I don't know if he lasts all season on the practice squad. I think that someone is going to be in a desperate situation and just come knocking on doors as far as what it means to pluck players from practice squads, see Ethan Driskell, understand that he probably had a draftable grade and just didn't get drafted, and then take a swing on Ethan Driskell off of a practice squad. The final player here, CJ Hansen, the 7th rounder out of Holy Cross. 6'5", 300 pounds, ran a 5.0 40-yard dash. Here's one of the reasons that I think this is going to be compelling for training camp. I want to know where CJ Hansen is lining up. I think CJ Hansen might be a tackle. I think CJ Hansen is going to get the opportunity to fail at tackle. Is he going to get the opportunity to fail as a tackle in his rookie season? That is the big question mark. He has huge upside from that athleticism. He has good mobility. These are the things that make me think he might be an offensive tackle. Whatever the case, whether he stays at offensive guard and becomes a Joe Thuney type offensive guard or becomes an Andrew Wiley type offensive tackle, he needs to work on his weight. He needs to work on his strength. I believe he can do that. He seems to have the frame to do that. When you look at his body, he looks like a young guy. He looks like, remember, I don't know how closely you follow college football. A lot of times, really highly rated high school offensive linemen, you see they'll go to camps, right? And they'll do one-on-one drills and everybody's wearing a cutoff t-shirt. There's not a lot of definition or musculature to guys that size at the high school level. Most of them are overweight, but not particularly muscle-bound. CJ Hansen's the same way. If you put him out there against high school defensive ends, he's going to absolutely rock them. He's going to absolutely dominate those guys, but he's going to look like with the helmet on, he's going to look like he's right in the age range. At least with all of the footage that I've seen, that might be outdated, etc. But he's going to, if you can get him up to 315 and you can get his body mass more muscular, at least in the upper body, this guy has massive, massive upside. So those are the 8 guys on offense that I thought had a potential to be the training camp darlings on the offensive side of the ball. I am looking forward in the comments section to your answers as to who might be the training camp darlings for the offense. I should be back tomorrow with a video like this for the defense, but it might be a couple days. I might have to find something else. Something else might pop up. Who knows what's going to happen between then and now. But if you like or appreciate what it is that I do on the channel, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, consider hitting the subscribe button in order to stick around for more, because I hope to have you back for the next one.